Warning: each episode of FAFO is intended for mature audiences and will contain descriptions about crimes of murder, sexual acts of violence, and crimes of that nature, and are meant for people who are 18 years of age or older. Take my word for it, it is not for the young or the faint of heart. This podcast contains real crimes and real victims whose cases are so shocking and true to life that most of the time the perpetrator has fucked around and found out. Listening discretion is advised. Hey y'all, it's Allie G and welcome to episode 2 of the Fantastic Four of King Road. Again, today I'm going to go into talking more about the 4 victims that were heinously murdered on the campus of Idaho State University, or University of Idaho. But a little bit of housekeeping or happiness. Today I got my Charlie Kirk shirt on, Freedom, and I just want to say that before I get into this second episode, I want to wish from my whole heart a happy, heavenly 32nd birthday to Charlie Kirk. And I know I'm a day late, but yesterday I just kind of took it all in and I had a little bit more research to do, and I just wanted to make sure that I wished him a happy heavenly birthday. He made such a mark on this country, on the world, in the nation. And yesterday, his wife, Erica, accepted the Presidential Medal of Freedom from Donald Trump. This is the highest civilian honor that you can receive. And Charlie Kirk will be forever on that roster. And with that, I want to say thank you, Charlie Kirk. Let's make heaven crowded. Now, on to this episode. Today, I am going to talk to you more about BK, the murderer. More insight into his education, more insight about what they found, and then I'm going to go into some of the victim impact statements that were made at his sentencing. And as much as I wish I could finish this in 2 episodes, because the victim impact statements are so important to me, and it was 2.5 hours of victim impact statements that I've watched over and over. And I just can't do them justice by condensing them. So here we go. Brian Christopher Kohlberger. He's one of those people that thinks he's the smartest person in the room. Everybody knows one of those, right? He was born on November 21st, 1994, to Mary Ann and Michael Kohlberger. He had 2 sisters, Melissa and Amanda. There's not too much we know about his sister, Melissa, but we do know that Amanda worked as a school counselor, and she appeared in the 2011 slasher film 2 Days Back, a film about a serial killer who kills a group of young students. Sound familiar? After graduating high school in Pennsylvania in 2013, he attended Monroe Career and Technical Institute in Bartonsville, but dropped out a year later. In 2015, he began to work as a security officer for the Pleasant Valley School District. Kohlberger later attended Northampton Community College College's campus in Tannersville, where he earned his associate's degree in psychology in 2018. BK then attended DeSales University in Center Valley, earning his bachelor's degree in psychology in 2020 and a master's degree in criminal justice in 2022. In the summer of 2022, he moved to Washington to pursue his PhD at Washington State University in Pullman. Its campus is less than 8 miles of Moscow, which is where the killings were. And at the time of the killings, he was a doctoral student in criminology and had completed his first semester there just 9 days before his arrest. BK had been a teaching assistant at WSU, and less than 2 weeks before the murders, faculty members met with him to discuss growing concerns and complaints about his behavior and conduct towards women. BK was terminated from his teaching assistant role on December 19, 2022, in a decision based on his behavior and performance overall. Now back to the case. BK's defense team claimed that he was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. However, a judge stated that he had never seen any odd behavior from Kohlberger during any of the hearings that he presided over the last several months, noting that BK, which from now on he's going to be BK. Y'all know that. I keep saying his name and it's hard to pronounce, but he's BK because he don't deserve to have his name said. By all accounts, is highly functioning, and that he would not allow a jury to hear testimony on an autism diagnosis unless Kohlberger took the stand himself, which we all know that in most criminal cases, the defendant never takes a stand. Now, here's some interesting information about BK that has been brought out since the gag order was lifted and BK's shocking plea deal to keep him off of death row because he's a piece of shit. Classmates of BK were interviewed and said many people you pass by are murderers, or even one you know, but that you actually don't know. But he doesn't, and continued to say, the classmate that is, it's very concerning as well as eerie and creepy. Then another student said he literally passed him in the hallway and BK brought the murders up. He went to DeSales private Catholic school with less than 5,000 students. So if you went there, you knew everyone in your field of study. But no one really knew BK. And it was here at DeSales where he got his feet wet in the study of criminology. He got both his undergraduate and his graduate degree there. His fellow classmate, Josh Ferrero, was interviewed, and he said he was a little odd or off, but you would not expect him to execute 4 people. He started following the murders immediately as a self-proclaimed true crime junkie. Still could not understand how this average Joe, average dude, could or would pull off a quadruple homicide. He continued to say that's why it's so shocking, because he was such a normal dude And you never know what's under people's skin. God forbid if he didn't do it, great. But all the signs pointed to the fact that he did. They actually had a full semester together, a class together, and they were teamed up for a project that lasted all semester. Ferrero said he was new. He was a new student, and BK was basically his only choice, and they actually worked well together. He was very smart. He was a commuter student and always stayed to himself. BK never showed signs of something more menacing. He went on to say that the perpetrator is not always the creepy guy with glasses, oily hair, or the stereotypical criminal creeping around the corner. Ferrero theorizes that it's something that stems from the inside of a person to commit a heinous crime. He really doesn't think there were many outward telltale signs of crimes. It's pretty much internal. It stems back to the blank slate theory. Instead, it's the predisposition theory. And the predisposition theory has to do with how you were raised, what you were exposed to as a child, and even your genetic predisposition. Some things you are predisposed to in your life that are unfortunate, and they do have to do with your genetics. He says he's not a professional, even with an undergraduate degree in criminology, but he believes that BK had a little bit of both. BK and Ferrero were both taught by legendary Dr. Ramsland. She emailed that she would never do an interview regarding BK, which I found kind of odd since she taught him. She would have some insight, but she has come across psychopaths and believes it might very well be a brain disorder. She said this in an interview 8 months before the murder, and that's really basically all we heard from her. And I feel like she would have a whole lot to say, since she is a legendary doctor in criminology. There are so many theories that come from different psychologists. If you've ever taken a criminology class, which I have, they talk about how you grew up, where you grew up, your socioeconomic status, the psychology behind criminals. It's all very interesting. But with a person like BK, he just doesn't check each and every box that would make you say, oh, yes, he is absolutely the murderer. As far as a motive, Ferrero doesn't see it as some grandiose thing where he's trying to get away with it. He thinks he had this compulsion and finally said, fuck it, I'm going to do it. BK had no run-ins with the law in Northampton nor Lee Valley County. And a search warrant executed at BK's parents' house. Remember, he was back in the Poconos when he was arrested. All they received was a criminal psychology textbook from DeSales and a criminal justice class document from DeSales. While he was at DeSales, he was rewarded the Master of Arts in Criminal Justice, which was a very high honor in his field of study. No one from his graduation class would reply or engage in an interview unless it was through DeSales' university. Now, my theory on that is the university just didn't want randoms giving information out. The lawyers probably said, don't let the students say anything unless it comes through us, just for protection, I guess, of the university's reputation. Because from all I could gather, it was a really good school for psychology and criminology. Multiple people who knew BK said he was strange, but hardly memorable. Just months after his graduation from DeSales, he moved cross-country to Washington for school. Days after the murders, he moved in to his new apartment in Pullman, and BK's dad tried to speak to his neighbor, Christian Martinez, or Martinez as we would say. So if I say Martinez, tomato, wanted to introduce him to BK because BK had trouble making friends. Martinez said it was creepy because BK would bring it up, saying it wasn't a crime of passion or they had no leads. One thing that stuck out in Martinez's mind is that BK wanted to see his reaction about taking someone's life and if he had a fascination with death. Now, for these folks, it's hindsight. Now that he's caught and pled guilty, now they're going back and thinking, as unnoticeable and unrememberable as this dude was, he did it. So things are, coming to light. The general consensus of his interview of people from his life is that he was just weird, quiet, and observant. He also talked about being able to catch a criminal through genealogy DNA like 23andMe. Now, if you'll remember in the first episode, that Q-tip, when they tossed the trash at his parents' house, the Q-tip tested positive for a male parent of the DNA that was found on the K-bar knife sheath. So, him talking about genealogy DNA like 23andMe, I think it's kind of kismet that that's what blew the case wide open. So the FBI interviewed a few people about the K-bar knife, and they wanted to know if anybody had ever seen him with one. It was a very common theory that in the dark web for incels, and those are involuntary celibates, because no one from the opposite sex wants anything to do with them. They show no interest. And that he was, in fact, an incel and obsessed with one of the girls. It was proven that he stalked the house for months before the murders. We know that he stalked from July 2022 to November 13th, 2022, which was the day of the murders. The kids' lives were all over social media, just like all 19 to 23-year-olds in college. Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, you know what everybody's doing, everything they're doing, where they are, and their lives were just put out there for everybody to see, and there was no malice with it. I think they just enjoyed each other, and they enjoyed making funny videos and picking on each other and recording it all and just showing everybody how much they loved each other. It was believed that Kaylee was the only intended victim, and Maddie, who was sleeping in her bed, as they did since they became good friends in late elementary school, was killed as well because she was right there. As for Xana and Ethan, I'm sorry to say, and I just really don't know any other way to put it, I believe they were collateral damage. Because if you remember, Xana was up scrolling TikTok and she received a contactless DoorDash order at 4 a.m. And we know these murders happened before 4:20 a.m. Xana was found on the floor. She had defensive wounds on her hands. She fought back. I think because of the person she was and how much she loved Ethan, and he was sleeping in her bed, she didn't want him to get to her. She didn't want her to get to him. So they found defensive wounds on her hands, and so she was on the floor, and Ethan was killed laying in the bed. So that takes us through the odd 3-story house and who was where, how he entered, how he exited, what he did, the fact that after insisting that he was on the autism spectrum and he was not guilty, weeks before his trial, he changed his plea. So we know he was guilty. So now we're going to go to the sentencing and victims' impact statements. Victim impact statements, to me, are very important because it lets us into the hearts and the minds of the family members and those 2 surviving roommates and how they were feeling and what they were thinking and everything that they'd gone through. And they were finally going to have their day in court to look at him and tell them how they felt. And that's very important for closure, I believe. I will make a note that Ethan Chapin's parents did not attend any of the hearings whatsoever. They were not at the victims' statements and sentencing court date. So that's just a little aside. We didn't hear anything from them from that day. After multiple motions to get the death penalty, BK taken off the table as a last-ditch effort to avoid execution, just 6 weeks before his trial was supposed to start, he changed his plea. The judge asked him, "Are you pleading guilty because you are guilty?" To which he answered, "Yes." And he said, "Have you been coerced? Yada, yada, yada." He said, no. He was guilty. It was a condition, because BK, he was so important. He was the smartest person in the room. He could make conditions on his plea deal. If he pled guilty to 4 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, good behavior, anything that could get him out of jail, he's gonna die in jail. So he did really get a death sentence because he's not coming out. But he said he would take the deal if he never had to say why he did it. I have my theory about why he did that. And to this day, the murder weapon, the K-bar knife, has never been found. Now, I watched the whole 2.5 hours of these family members and friends of the victims and could feel the pain and the anger with every word. I'm going to highlight a few of those statements for you. They're all long, but they're also very important to me. And doing this podcast to understand the unimaginable place these parents, siblings, grandparents, and friends feel. I will also note that BK sat there with a blank stare the entire time. I don't even know that he blinked. I'm telling you, that dude sat there for 2.5 hours like this. What? Piece of shit. The judge was really cool. He thanked everyone for their courage and expressed condolence to each one of them as their statements were complete. Now, the first person I'm going to start with is Bethany Funk. She was one of the surviving roommates, but she was not able to face him. So she didn't come. She sent her statement to be read by a very good friend of theirs named Emily Allant. She says, I not only lost a friend, I lost a sister. I thought we would go upstairs and they were going to tease us for being scaredy cats like they always did, and then we'd go to Taco Bell. But sadly, that's not what happened. And what turned out to be my worst nightmare. She woke up around 7 a.m. with a terrible toothache and called her dad because he was a dentist, and he told her to take an Advil. So she did, and she went back to sleep, still not knowing what happened. Had she known, she of course would have called 911 right away, knowing it would not have saved them. She lives with guilt and regret for not calling right away. She was so scared and frantic when she made the 911 call, she has no recollection of what she said. She said, that was the worst day of my life, and I know it always will be. She received death threats from strangers. She and her family were harassed by the media and smeared all over social media because, you know, people can be really cruel and they don't know the whole story, so they just make shit up. And she was blamed for not calling immediately, but no one knew the insight into these kids' lives and what they did. I mean, like she said, she thought she was going to wake up and they were going to call her a scaredy cat. She and her family were even chased. She often wonders why she was spared on that dreadful day. Why did I get to live? She felt guilty even being around the victims' families because she was still alive. Can you imagine how that makes a person feel? My heart just breaks for all these people. She slept in her parents' room for almost a year and made them close the blinds during the day and double lock all the doors for fear that the person who was still out there would come after her. She goes on to say that the fear never really leaves, and there were days that she could not get out of bed. But one day she decided that she must live for them. She says, I am beyond blessed, so still to be here when they aren't, and I will not take that for granted. And everything I do, I will do with them in mind. She describes the house on King Road as a home where they laughed until they couldn't breathe, cooked, did crafts, binge watched reality shows, played games, and spent lazy days on the couch. I'm sharing some of her fondest memories of them. And one of them was that she opted out, or some of them opted out of going to a Halloween party at the Sigma Chi house because they just wanted to stay at the apartment, not even worried about the party. They were just enjoying each other, talking, laughing until she couldn't breathe. She says she doesn't think she's laughed that hard in her whole life. She says Xana was 1 in a million. She was the life of the party, but she was also the kindest and funniest person she knew and made everyone around her feel so loved. She went on about Kaylee to say she had the most beautiful and radiant smile. She was one of the most loving and beautiful people in the world, but she was also a prankster, and she lit up a room and could rule the world if she wanted to. She said Ethan was the sweetest and most genuine guy. He was always smiling and making other people smile too. He was the kind of person you always wanted to be around. He was very easy to talk to and just so much fun. And the way he cared for Xana was something to truly admire. They were proof that storybook love and true romance existed. It was very apparent to everyone that they were absolute soulmates. She said, Maddie was not only one of my best friends, but the older sister I never had. She really looked up to and admired Maddie, calling her someone with the sweetest soul and loved everyone. There are so many nice memories with Maddie, she could not name just one. She hopes that they are remembered for who they are and not for what happened to them, because they deserve to be remembered in the highest way. She talks to them in her prayers every night and lets them know she loves them and will always remember how amazing they were. Now, the next person that gave a victim impact statement was the other surviving roommate, Dylan Mortensen. Now, she had to sit at the prosecution table to be in line with him because she did not want to make eye contact with him. And she was visibly shaken. You could hear with every breath, she was shaking so bad. She said, what happened that night changed everything because of him. He didn't just take their lives. He took away their light and who they were becoming and the futures they were going to have. He took them from me, my friends, my home, and my ability to tell them I love them and I'm proud of them. She went on to say that all the people left in the world are left to carry this heaviness forever. What he did shattered me in places I didn't know could break. She made escape plans everywhere she went. She suffers from horrible panic attacks. The emotional pain is too much to handle. She can't breathe, stop shaking. Her chest feels like it's caving in. She drops to the floor with the thought that something is really wrong because of him. He stole a version of her that she would never get back. She says he may have shattered parts of me, but I'm still putting myself back together, and it's so very hard. She dreamed that she got to say goodbye. She called BK a hollow vessel, something less than human, a body without empathy, without remorse. He chose destruction and evil. He took everything from me, but he didn't take my voice. He will never take the memories, the love we shared, and the things that made me feel like they were my family. Those things are mine, not his, she said. I get to live my life, and he will stay here, empty, forgotten, and powerless. Now, the next people that we're going to hear from is Maddie Mogan's stepdad and mom, Scott and Karen Laramie. Maddie was our gift, purpose, and hope. Scotty joined Maddie's family when she was just 2.5 years old. He goes on to say that she was a great listener, bright, beautiful, and observant, seeing the minds and hearts of those that needed love and empathy. She loved music, and she had a wonderful sense of humor. She was an easy child, a joy to raise, and she was very witty. She showered them with love by spending time with them, prioritizing her parents over what normal teenagers would do. She was planning her professional future as a marketing major. All we had not become, he said, she would. He went on to say that her mother and him were ordinary people, but lived extraordinary lives because of Maddie. She was taken senselessly and brutally in a sudden act of evil. First they felt disbelief, then disorientation, then overcome with grief. The vast emotional wound will never heal from the loss of Maddie. Her mother sometimes asked, how can I go on with the loss of my favorite person in the whole world? Her loss will continue to be felt forever, that's for sure. But it helps to know that she's in heaven. We will grow old without our only child. We will endure and go on, he said. For Maddie, we will go on and continue to love. We want to overcome hatred, darkness, and evil. We know that per the court, we can make an impact victim statement for sentencing. We support the plea agreement. Society needs to be protected from his evil. But for the defendant, we will not waste the words, nor will we fall into hatred and bitterness. Evil has many faces, but evil does not deserve our time and attention. We are done being victims. We are taking back our lives. We will turn our time, talents, and attention into helping others. We can move on from tragedy. Adversity will visit us. Evil will visit us. But we will overcome. Those are just some of the poignant statements that Scott Laramie made. And the next person to speak was attorney Leander James. And he spoke on the behalf of Karen Laramie, Maddie's mom. She asked him to read her statement. She thanks her husband for his statement. Maddie was our hope and light. She carried hope and light into the future for us all. We now look to our Creator to know that her light continues where we look to see her in his presence. Some may be able to give forgiveness to the defendant and what he does and what he has done. But at this time, we cannot, nor we may ever. We will not ask for mercy for what he has done. The agony and grief are too great. We will waste no further thoughts or words on him. For Maddie's sake, we will move on and do our best to carry Maddie's light into this world and make it a better place. And the next person that they brought up was Kim Cheeley, and that was Maddie Mogen's paternal grandmother. After thanking many people for their actions on behalf of Maddie's aunt, her great aunt, and daughter-in-law, Corey Hatrock, the plea deal is the one that punishes the perpetrator for the horrendous crime, protects the public from further harm, and allows all of them who knew and loved the kids time to grieve and to be spared of a long trial and many appeals and for potential mistrials along the way. She also mentioned that they were so grateful to the prosecutor, Bill Thompson, and his team for their painstaking work, as well as the Moscow Police Department, as well as the University of Idaho, for honoring the kids and being so supportive. Maddie was her first grandchild, and she wanted to be called Nana, but Maddie came up with Deedle. And Maddie gave her grandmother a necklace, and it had Maddie and Deedle engraved on it. And you could see her grandmother clutching it while she spoke. And she said it was very important to her. She and her grandmothers on Wednesdays would have bubble baths, brownies, and books. They were very grateful for her to have her on holidays and special occasions other than those Wednesdays. When the 4 kids was murdered, she went on to say, "The foundation fell out of our world." She states that she really never has experienced anxiety like this. She took to books on grief and support groups to get her through, and even tried NDR, a process that tries to replace traumatic memories with something more comforting. The struggle with the media attention was extremely difficult, especially for Ben, Maddie's father. She is very thankful for all the community's support through this time, because no one deserves to have to bury their child. She says that she can only think of 2 blessings that came out of these murders. One is that her son, Ben, was present during the weeks following. She asked for people who knew Maddie and the world to pass on the light that she had. Now let's move to Ben Mogen, Maddie's biological father, who was visibly upset and nervous. He said Maddie was his only child and said it was the only good he ever did in his life, and it makes him really proud. He found it hard to get his words out. He thought they would have a lifetime to connect, to get to know more of each other. He was really proud to go with her mother and stepdad to go get her diploma that she had earned. He said he was so thankful for Karen and Scotty for doing so much of a great job raising her. He said Scotty was an amazing role model to Maddie, even when he wasn't able to be. They had so many good times, going to concerts and musical festivals together, something they connected over and loved very much. His favorite memory was that he won 4 tickets and backstage passes the day before a Mac Miller concert. Mac Miller was her favorite artist, and I know because my son loves Mac Miller. Mac Miller was very profound, and he is no longer with us either. He referenced the last thing she ever wrote to him was a Father's Day card. That means the world to him, and he was so glad that he kept it. In this card, she says, "Happy Father's Day. I hope you have the best day, and I hope we can hang together again soon." She loved the birthday card he gave her and said, "Maybe we can see a concert together sometime soon." She said, "I hope you're doing well," and that she was proud of how far he had come. She thanked him for always encouraging her to do her best. She ended it with, "I love you lots and lots. Love, Maddie May." She did encourage him a lot, as he had issues with substance abuse and addiction. When he didn't want to live anymore, she kept him alive. He was so happy to meet Jake and go to the Gorge to see Watershed with them. I'm assuming the Gorge is a concert place and Watershed is a band that they like. He said he will never be able to replace her, as much as he wrote down to say he was at a loss for words. He ended with, "I love you, Maddie, and I wish you were still here." Now, this is where I'm going to have to stop today, because the next set of victim impact statements I'm going to spend a little more time on, especially Kaylee Gonzalez's sister, who is hardcore. She reminds me of the way I would act at my sister's killer's sentencing. I really enjoyed what she had to say. As hard as it was to watch this, and I did several times, because I wanted to get familiar with each family member, with each one of the kids, and what these wonderful kids meant to each one of these family members. It was difficult, but I learned so much about the greatness of humans, how humans can forgive, how sometimes it's hard for humans to give at first or ever. And another thing that really touched me about the victim impact statements, and you'll find out in the next episode, and I promise episode 3 will be the final one. The prosecutor and the judge were visibly emotional, crying, using Kleenex. They showed nothing but utter respect for the Fantastic Four of King Road and their families and friends, and for the 2 victims that survived. because I do believe that Dylan and Bethany were victims as well, even though they're still walking this earth. So I would just ask that y'all leave your comments. Tell me what you think so far. I want some feedback to know if y'all are enjoying this. I know I am, even though I'm still a little nervous and I had a bunch of technical difficulties today. And it almost didn't go down. That's why it's a little late today. But I made it happen because I wasn't going to give up. And I just want to hear from y'all. So you can reach me on Facebook, FAFO True Crime Podcast, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I haven't done my X account yet, but I need to, and my Snapchat. But I will post the link of all the videos onto YouTube, and I'll also share them on my socials. So what I'll ask y'all to do is go to my YouTube page, FAFO True Crime Podcast with a twist, like and subscribe, and that way you will get notifications of when I do upload an episode or a video. And if some of you are wondering about the twist, I guess you're going to have to keep wondering. But I guarantee you, you're going to like it. It's not always going to be the same. And as they say on Big Brother, expect the unexpected. Everybody have a great day and a great weekend. And I will see y'all again, hopefully next Tuesday, with the final episode of the Fantastic Four of King Road. God bless and have a good day.